Gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of The Fishing Teacher, and really appreciate you guys watching today's video. And guys, today we're going to be talking about where the best place is to catch a big bass in the lake that you fish, because every lake is different and there's certain areas of a lake that hold bigger fish than others. So we're going to give you guys some basic tips and advice on what to look for to catch those big bass, because man, there's nothing more fun than catching a big one. So we're going to get into that. Also, guys, I want to remind you, I just posted my third video for my new YouTube channel, Advanced Bass Fishing with Randy Blockett, and I'll put the link in the description of the video if you guys would like to check that out. Today we did an episode on chatterbait fishing, so much appreciated if you guys could check that out. Okay guys, big ones here. Now we've talked about big fish in the past. We're going to talk about it more, but what I wanted to do in today's video specifically is I want to talk about where you need to look for in the lake that you fish to give yourself the best chance to catch a big fish. Now, obviously, it depends on where you're fishing. If you guys fish a smallmouth lake, like at Lake St. Clair, it's going to be a lot different than you're fishing Lake Okeechobee. But nevertheless, there is some common threads that will give you a better chance to catch big fish. And a lot of it is based upon the time of the year. So I sort of wanted to give you guys a real basic foundation of where big fish live at in most lakes across the country in 4 different seasons. So first of all, let's start out with the springtime of the year. Springtime is going to be your best time to catch a big fish anywhere in the lake that you fish, because the fish are shallow. That is your odds just go way up at catching big ones during the springtime of the year, especially in early spring before the fish start spawning. And the places you want to look for in the lake that you fish that are going to have those big ones are places where the fish are getting ready to move into spawn. So for an example, if you've got a lake that has got a lot of coves on it, every cove on a lake has got a point, and it's got a main lake bank leading to that point. In the early spring, the best place to catch a big one is going to be either on that point leading into that spawning area, or maybe just slightly out on the main lake, but in and around that main point. This is areas that what we call are staging areas. It's areas that fish live before they move into spawn, because the fish will spawn in the back end of those coves, but those big ones will stay out a little bit deeper before they get ready. So that's a really good place to catch them. Now, as spring goes on a little bit and gradually turns into summer and that type of stuff, you have a big transition into them as far as where the fish go. Now, in the late spring, like not when it's not into summer, but like after the fish get done spawning, one of the places they go is sort of back out to the same type of areas they were before they spawn. They swim out of those coves where they're spawning, and they get out like on the points of those same coves. And a lot of times this is when they get out there and suspend on those points. So what I like to do is in the late spring and early summers, I'll get out off maybe some of those same points with like a topwater lure. That's a really good way to catch a big one, but that's where a lot of those bigger fish live. Now in the summertime, when you're talking about like, late May in through September, the big fish start to get harder to catch because they disperse more and there's not as many big fish shallow. Most of the big fish in the summertime of the year are going to be in deeper water or offshore in open water. And a lot of times they're very difficult to catch, but one of the prime areas to catch a big fish in the summertime of the year is off deep main lake points. That's where a lot of those fish live all year long. They stage out there like we just talked about. They live out there all the time, except for when they're spawning. But when I'm talking about on a main lake point, they can be anywhere on that point. They could be on the bottom in 20 foot of water, or they could be out over 60 or 70 feet of water suspended, but they relate to that point, the main lake points, based upon your water clarity. The clearer the water is, the deeper the fish are going to be and the more they're going to be suspended, and the dirtier the water is, the more they're going to be shallow on that point. But regardless, it remains the same. Points are a good area. And the next best thing is going to be any heavy cover that you have. So if your lake has thick grass beds, or if your lake has boat docks on it, or brush piles, lily pads, or anything like that, try looking for those big fish in the thickest cover that you have in shallow water. That's going to be a really good way to catch them. Now, as you get into the fall time of the year, again, it gets a little bit tougher because the fish are scattered out and the big fish are still roaming around. But one of the best ways to catch them in the fall time of the year is to catch a big one is covering water in the major creek arms of the lake with a topwater lure. A lot of these big fish in the fall time of the year, they're starting to feed up to get, ready for winter. So they're looking to get a big meal. So I like to take like a big buzz bait or a big walking topwater, and I just get in those major creek arms and put the trolling motor down and go. I'll fish a point, I'll fish the back of a cove, I'll fish a straight bank. Covering water is the big key, because those fish, again, are cruising, roaming around, looking for a big meal to feed up before winter. That's a good way to catch that's where a lot of the big ones live in the fall time of the year. And in the winter time, a lot of the fish, it's sort of the same way as the fall. The fish in the winter are going to be in the depth ranges depending upon their water clarity. If you have a lake that has got, sort of off-colored water in it, you're not going to catch many big fish. You're not going to catch many fish at all, because fish do not bite very well in the wintertime in off-colored water. If you're going to fish in the wintertime, and if you're going to catch a big one in the wintertime, you've got to fish a lake that's got some fairly clean water of over 3 foot of visibility. Now, the main places that big fish live in the wintertime is off bluff banks, in the middle of grass flats and grass edges, and again on the main lake points. But primarily they will be suspending out there. So they're suspending out off the bluff banks, out off the points, or suspending over those grass beds. And you can catch them on things like Alabama rigs and jerk baits and that type of stuff. But the main thing, guys, if you look at this overall, the areas that big fish use, there's 2 things that are in common. Number one is you have to fish areas that have close proximity to deeper water. And number 2, you have to fish heavy cover. So if you're staying around heavy cover, and if you're fishing areas that are shallow, like bluffs or something, or points that have deep water real close, your odds of catching a big one goes way up. So anyway, I hope it helps. We'll talk to you guys later. See you.